All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. So this session is being recorded. Welcome. This is the Prometheus Performance Systems webinar. Our topic today is grow your sales pipeline using operational discipline with Smartsheet. So a little quick overview. After this, you can visit our YouTube channel to view a recording of this webinar. And the webinar is sponsored by some of our partners, so please check them out after this. You can go to gosmartsheet.com for Smartsheet Consulting, opscoo.com for fractional PMO and COO services for small businesses and startups, unifiedfinance.org for financial services aimed at startups, and confo.com for support for wafer fabs and capital tool makers. I'm Mike Fritsch. I've been a consultant since 2003, have 30 plus years of management and operations experience. And today I'm going to take you through how to grow your sales pipeline. So one of my favorite business quotes is this one by Peter Drucker, the famed management consultant, 39 plus books on management. And he says, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. And I've seen that to be incredibly true, whether it was in my corporate career or in the many instances that I've consulted with numerous companies of all sizes. So when that comes to sales and managing your sales pipeline, that's especially true. So let's take a look at that. So what we'll talk about today is how we can grow your sales pipeline. And I'm going to start out with part one and talk about some key principles. These principles apply regardless of the sales tracking system you use, regardless of kind of your business type. And then after we talk about the key principles, I'm going to show you an example of putting them into practice and what we do for ourselves and what we do with a lot of our clients using the Smartsheet platform. So we'll walk through that. And then at the end of the session, I'll show you where to get more information. We can do a deep dive into some Q&A. We'll stop our recording prior to going into the Q&A session. So with that said, let's go ahead and just get started. So one of the most important things when you want to really manage your sales pipeline is to understand each of the stages, have them well defined so that you can measure it, and from measuring it, you can improve it. This is an example that we use. Your stages may be slightly different, but almost all stages are going to be going from some type of lead identification to nurturing that prospect into a customer, and then bringing it to a place where you get paid. And your sales pipeline is the lifeblood of your business, especially if you're a small business or a consultancy. You've got to have that pipeline be strong and healthy in order to get the revenue that you need to stay in business. If you're a startup, a rock solid sales pipeline is going to be really important, not only for your revenue, your cash flow, but especially for your valuation. When investors come in or you're up for acquisition, they want to take a look and see if that pipeline is real. And so the more solid your operations are, the better the definition of the sales stages, the better that you manage that process. As a startup, the higher your valuation will be. So let me walk you through this example. This one I think is very appropriate if you're a consultant, for example. But what we use is primarily 4 stages until we get to either a win or a loss. So what's important here in this example is that we've identified our sales stage. You need to do that for your business. Then we have a definition of what it means to be in that stage. And this is really important, especially as your organization gets larger, because you don't want people talking around, hey, what stage is my deal in? If you're not all on the same sheet of music, then your data is going to be very corrupt. you're not going to be able to trust it. And then finally, one of the key elements of looking at your sales pipeline is really predicting the likely revenue that you're going to have coming out of that current pipeline. And so I've seen some people where the salesperson for each deal, regardless of the stage, will assign kind of a probability of, here's what I think the chance of success is. But what we found as a best practice is for each stage, you have a particular percentage, a probability of success that deal at that stage will result in a win and result in payment. And what that does is keep everybody honest. And it also makes it easier to look at your entire pipeline and you don't have to guess. So the example that we use, again, I'll walk you through it. You can substitute subtleties. Maybe your definition will be a little different. Maybe the probability percentage will be different for you, but we walk through it this way. The initial stage is when there's been a lead identified or a lead captured. That may be something that comes into your website. Maybe you did some networking, but we call that stage 0 with 0% probability. And we just have this opportunity. We haven't done anything with it. We progress that to stage 1, which we call a prospect. Once we have a deal or a product, something that we think they'll buy, and the person that's going to buy it has been contacted. So we've reached out and we're just doing that initial touch. That's why it's at 10%. The next stage is when we actually have a meeting. We talk with that prospect. They're still interested. We call that assessment because we've had a conversation with them. We've seen where we can provide value, what help we can provide. At that stage for us, we've got about a 25% success of closing a deal. Once we've moved through and kind of answered all the questions, we get to the point where the prospect is ready to buy, but they need a proposal. So we need to price something and give it to them. So the proposal stage is once we have provided that proposal, it's something that they can say yes to, something that they can buy. And we call that 50% for our purposes. Next is the contracts phase. And this might be a very short phase, but sometimes it's really lengthy. In the contracts phase, your buyer has said yes, but often, especially we're working with larger companies, you've got to go through an entire process to get onboarded, whether it's purchasing, it's legal, there's lots of approvals and paperwork. And sometimes the deal is not going to go through. Sometimes companies have lengthy processes, things change. And so in our experience, we assign that a 90% probability. And then once the deal is accepted, once there is either a purchase order in place or we've been able to invoice them, then we call that deal won, and we weight that at 100% of revenue. So we're saying we are certain that we will get that money for that deal. Anywhere along the stage, the prospect may say no or may go silent. And so best practice is you're going to take that and you're going to call it a loss. You want to keep track of that because you want to understand at what stage you lost the deal. And you also want to really put some rules in place that says, hey, if my client, my prospect goes silent, how long do I leave that lead open? I like to think in terms of a number of weeks, but depending on your industry, depending on your sales cycle, you might leave it over longer. From a best practice perspective, I prefer to close it and then re-engage if it's going to be a long time and start a new cycle all over again. You're still not starting from scratch because you've got that history with the client, but from a pipeline perspective, it's going to give you cleaner numbers. And then finally, very, very important is it's not exactly a sales stage, but from a metric perspective, we like to track it. And that's when you get cash received. So that's when you have received that first payment from the client. Very important from a revenue planning perspective, because depending on who your client is, many big corporations now pay terms that are net 45, net 60, net 75. I've seen as long as net 90. So you've got to understand that from a financial perspective as well as a sales perspective, that you might close a deal and it could be 3 months before you actually get payment. So that's an important factor. So essential to managing your pipeline is to understand the stages of that pipeline so that you know where you are with any particular deal at any particular time. And as Drucker said, you got to measure it to make it better. It's important to have metrics. Without metrics, you don't know where you're at. So defining that sales pipeline gives you the data that's going to be really important in order to manage that pipeline. But now you've got to have the metrics that let you know where you're at and that let you know where you need to improve. So I think there are 7 key metrics for pipeline management, and these are the ones that I think are best. So the first one is new leads capture rate. So you've got to feed that pipeline. A new lead is that new prospect that comes in. Here's an opportunity. In my sales stages, that's stage 0. The next is the lead conversion rate. In absolute terms, that's I start out in stage 0 all the way until I get cash. So of my 100 leads, how many of those turn into actual paying customers? You know, if it's 5 out of 100, that's a 5% conversion rate. And so that's important because if I want to increase revenue, either I got to get a lot more leads if I'm only at 5%, but if I can increase my conversion rate, then I can get more business with fewer leads. Sales stage fallout rate. And so what I think is important to track is through each of your stages, and you remember I had 0 to 4 until I won. I want to know what percentage of my leads make it to each stage, right? So if, for example, I have a conversion rate of 10%, meaning that 1 out of every 10 leads actually turns into a paying customer, it's important for me to understand if they're falling out at the prospect stage, the proposal stage, the negotiation stage, et cetera. And so that way I can adjust my expectations, and I may go back to that previous slide and that definition and adjust my percentages once I have good data around my fallout rate. The next one is lead conversion cycle time. So this is an important corollary to your fallout rate. And that ultimate cycle time is the time from when a lead is identified or captured to when you get paid, right? That's ultimately what matters in your business. But it's important for you to understand where the cycle time is for each of those stages. So I like to track from lead capture stage 0 into 1, 2, 3, and 4, and see how long my deals and the type of customers stay in each one of those stages. Once we've actually won deals, then we've got revenue. And what's important to understand is, well, what is the average initial transaction value? Okay, so with that first deal with that customer, they've made it from lead through prospect, through everything, and now they're a paying customer. How much money do you get from them for the first time? So that's an important number to know from a financial perspective and an operations perspective. And then lastly, I like to look at the average lifetime, and I've got that in quotes, transaction value. So I've captured a customer. How much are they worth over time? In my business, is it one deal and then I've got to get another one, or once I capture a customer, I can get revenue from them for, in perpetuity? And the lifetime is in quotes because you may want to take a look at it and say annual or lifetime, or you may do one or both. But these are what I think are the most essential metrics to understand and manage your pipeline. And so as you are taking a look and looking at reports, looking at dashboards, these are the type of things that you want to display to the relevant people. And so as you're getting ready to management, you've got that foundation of data, which is what is your data and what are your metrics, but now you've got to build that structure for the reporting, for the dashboards. And so what you want to do is really understand your data sources. So where's that information coming from that feeds that pipeline? You may have multiple sources. I've worked with a lot of clients that they've got Salesforce for one thing, they've got some Excel over here, they've got some HubSpot over there. So there's multiple pieces where that stuff is coming. What you want to make sure is that you know where everything is coming from and you understand that. And you need to ask the question, are those data sources clean? They don't have to be absolutely clean. That's part of the process of building that structure, is you can understand them and clean them up. So don't be embarrassed if you start out and you go, it's a little shaky, because you go in and fix that. But it's important to go ahead and say, where are my data sources? Let me understand how clean they are. Can I do some better structure to clean them up? And again, starting out where you define those sales stages, as I showed you in one of the earlier slides, that's really important for clean data. So once you've got those sources, you're going to bring that data in. You got to put it somewhere. So where are you going to store that data? Is it multiple databases? Does it all come into Salesforce? Does it all come into Smartsheet, which is what we like to do? Make a decision and make sure you know where that data is stored. And then take that data. Is that providing you the information you need to do your metrics and to calculate those metrics? All right. And just like you define each of those sales stages, it's important to define the calculation that gives you the metrics that I talked about. And then, ask this question. I know this probably doesn't happen in your organization, but I've seen it elsewhere. Can those metrics be gained? Right. So can a salesperson or a manager kind of go in and cheat a little bit? And then you're getting data that's not as accurate. You're getting surprises at the end of the quarter. So it's almost impossible to exclude all gaming. I mean, because people are making judgments, and maybe it's not judgment. Maybe somebody's more optimistic and another person's more pessimistic. But what you want is transparency. You want an ability to see what's going on, and you want to minimize where gaming can take place. All right. So those foundations give you your data. They make it clean. They give you the things you want to track. And now you want to think about reports. Reports from the perspective of taking those metrics, taking that information, and having it available for folks and having people be able to see the information that is relevant to them. So rather than wading through tons and tons of sheets or looking at a hell of a bunch of PowerPoints or sending a bunch of emails all over the place, let's get some targeted reports that are more efficient. And when you've done that, the next stage up is get the most relevant information, put it into a visualization that's customized to each player, and that is a dashboard. So that is the process that you want to use to really manage your sales pipeline and to make it visible. And for the dashboards, there's a few best practices that we really recommend, and we call that visualization. So visualizing your data, taking that data to make a dashboard. So what are some really essential best practices with that? Well, first, do something, right? Get started and then make it better. I was interviewed by Forbes on the 5 top pitfalls for technology implementations, and one of them was going at turtle speed or the train has left the station. That analysis paralysis where nothing's good enough, and so you don't do anything. If you want to manage your pipeline, you want to get it better, get started. So get something out there, it's good enough to start, and then you make it better. When you're making a dashboard, when you're making a visualization, number 2 is that you should be presenting information that is used for driving decisions, driving actions, and giving you results. Okay, so you don't want to just like, oh, this is kind of interesting. You want something that decision makers, that individuals can look at and go, oh, I need to change something, or okay, I feel good where I'm at. Not just oh, well, that's interesting. It's like, this is for getting better operationally. So keep that in mind as you design these visualizations. The next is know your audience. So the best dashboards are customized for each audience. And so an executive dashboard is going to look different from the sales director or the sales manager. It's going to look different than the finance person, look different than the individual salesperson, for example. So you want to give them the information that is pertinent to their role so that they can make the right decisions, take action, and drive results in their area of expertise, in their area of responsibility. If you can, you want to tell your story in one screen, right? So it's like just a dashboard. I can look, I can see, I can dig down, I can drill down if I want to see more, but give it to me in one screen. And then human nature is such that, you know, the most important information, you want to kind of move that up to the top. That's what people will see first. So those were the key principles that you need to use in order to improve your sales pipeline. And those are system or platform agnostic. In other words, if you're on Salesforce, if you're on another CRM, if you're just doing this in Excel, Excel and PowerPoint, and or doing it in some other system, you still need to follow those basic principles, those best practices in order to make the most of your sales pipeline. So regardless of what you're using, follow those principles and you're going to see some pretty amazing improvement. You're going to be really happy with it. So what I want to do now is shift gear, and I'm going to show you an example of how you can take those principles and put them into action with kind of my favorite platform, especially for consultants, for small businesses, and for startups. But I've got a lot of clients in the Fortune 100 that do darn fantastic things with Smartsheet as well. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Smartsheet, and I'm going to show you an example of a sales pipeline, a demo example. So let's go into that. All right, so what the heck is Smartsheet? Smartsheet's the world's leading SaaS enterprise collaborative work management platform. And so what that means is it's made for managing and automating collaborative work, which is the work of people kind of interacting. Studies show that over 60% of the work in any organization is really collaborative work. It's outside kind of standard set ERP systems, set inventory systems. It's the kind of things that you're probably doing with a lot of meetings, with a bunch of Excel files, with some PowerPoints, and what else. It tends to be kind of ad hoc. And that means it tends to be maybe a little bit undisciplined sometimes, and certainly very burdensome and administratively, heavy, administratively burdensome. Collaborative work management platforms take that and make it easier for people to work together and make them work together not only more efficiently, but much more effectively as well. This is my favorite graphic, the kind of the Superman pose, because one of the things I love about Smartsheet is that it has very familiar views for users. So you can work in Smartsheet in what is called grid mode, which looks and behaves, I say, tastes like Excel. Wonderful thing about that is many of the formulas are similar. The adaptation ease and speed is very fast because people are used to Excel. They can get on Smartsheet and they can find their way around easily. The second view that I often work with and people work with is called Gantt view, and that is your classic project management view of things, Gantt chart view of things. Looks and behaves a lot like Microsoft Project, so tastes like Microsoft Project. It has, in my opinion, many advantages over Project, but you can switch back and forth between grid view, Gantt view seamlessly, and you just have a lot of power there. And then the third and fourth view is a card view, which is like for Kanban, and a calendar view where you want to look at things in a calendar. So all of those things make it a very flexible platform and very, very useful for sales pipeline management. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But the reason I call it a platform is because it's not just a point solution. So I'm talking to you today about sales pipeline management, but with a Smartsheet solution, you can work on a heck of a lot of different things. We help a lot of people run their projects, set up their PMOs. Again, like this, do a lot of pipeline management and sales, campaign management and marketing, product development, system rollout in IT, lots of things around operations and logistics. So there's a whole host of things that you can use the platform for, and that interactivity, that interconnectivity gives a really large synergistic effect. So you can really accelerate the execution of your work. But let's take a look at it specifically for managing a sales pipeline and putting in practice those principles that we just learned earlier. So let's go. So I'm going to show you just some screenshots, and then I'm going to jump on the system and show you a little bit of it live. So here's a dashboard example. This is our wafer fab and capital tool maker partner. So when we do work in the semiconductor industry with wafer fabs and with capital tool makers, we do that work through Confo. But here's a demo dashboard of a sales pipeline. And I'm going to show you this in a minute. But you can see bar charts, you can see key metrics. One of the great things about Smartsheet is that it works well with Power BI. We love Power BI visualizations, and a Smartsheet dashboard. It's very easy to embed a Power BI dashboard and link that Power BI dashboard to the Smartsheet data. So screenshot of what I'll show you. It's very easy to customize a Smartsheet dashboard. So you don't need IT to do it. You don't need a programmer to do it. You can learn this very quickly. We can show you. So you can add widgets as widget based. So you can put in charts, you can put in metrics, you can add web content. All that can do, if you have permission to manage that dashboard, you can go do it with a few clicks of a button. Very, very easy to get up to speed. Very, very easy to update. What I love about this is it really reinforces that number one principle of best practices for visualizations. Do something. Do something, get it out there, make it better. And that easy customization means that the principle about giving each audience member, each stakeholder, each department their own dashboard, very easy to do this way. So when we talk about actually building the foundation, we talked about the importance of understanding your data structure, data sources, data storage, reports, metrics, and then using that to feed into a dashboard. And so in a Smartsheet solution, and the one I'm going to show you, first you identify your data sources, and those data sources can be Smartsheet itself. They could be Salesforce, it could be Office 365, Dynamics. Smartsheet plays well with others. I'll show you that in a minute, that there's lots of inherent connectors, lots of APIs, integrations. So almost every cloud-based system out there that you're probably using, there's a way to connect that to Smartsheet fairly easily. So you get your data sources, and then you put it into where you're going to store it. In a Smartsheet solution, we configure data sheets, one or more sheets. And so that's where we keep our information. From that, we look into those sheets and we can calculate metrics. And so our best practice is to make separate metric sheets that are linked in, live, always updated, and reports. And so we can combine the data sheets and the metrics to make reports. Those are going to feed dashboards. All right. And the very cool thing about reports in Smartsheet is that they are two-way. And so you do not have to enter data in the data sheet or make updates in the data sheet itself. if and when you are given permission, because everything is permission based, you can look at the report, which presents information only relevant to you. And if you have the permission to edit that information, you can edit it directly in the report, real time. The original data is updated. And as an aside, everything that happens is date timestamp and tag to the user that made the change. And so you always have transparency and an audit trail of anything that happened. Really, really helpful for that clean data, that data integrity. So that's the structure that you put together to create a dashboard, which I'll show you shortly. And as I said, what I love about Smartsheet, one of the reasons we use it so often with our clients is, it plays well with others. And so it integrates with all the leading cloud applications. It creates connections across systems. And you can see, if you look here, probably if you've got a system that you're using, one of these is in use at your company, and we can easily connect it to that. If it's not on here, it still can be connected because there's a lot of standard APIs. There's a lot of ways to do it. So with that said, let's go ahead and transition over to taking a look at a live instance. So let's take a look at a sales dashboard. So here is a Smartsheet dashboard. Like I said, we built that with our partner Confo to give demos to folks in the semiconductor industry. And what we did here, simple example, but we like an example where at the top of it, for a salesperson, we've got an inspirational quote. We've got the goals, so everybody knows where they're going after, where they're headed. And then we've got links to other part of the systems, and I'll navigate with that with you shortly. But in this instance, we want to take a look at, well, here's our sales pipeline. And you'll remember that we had phases that went from 0 lead ID. We've chosen just to start charting at stage 1, but through prospect, assessment, proposal, contract, won, and lost. And so we want to see at any point in time where we are in that. We like to take a look at the opportunities by sales rep. And so who's selling what, who's got what in the pipeline. And then again, some key metrics. So how many in each of the phases, what's the total, weighted forecast, that sort of thing, just kind of the key numbers that are important. So we take a look at those. And then for cycle times, I've chosen just a few of the cycle times for this demo. But looking at our won loss cycle time, so on average, how long does it take before we've lost something? How long does it take before we've won something? And then the in-flight cycle time, from all the deals that are currently open, they haven't either been won or been lost. How many days have they been in flight? Now, again, demo data, and I haven't gone in and refreshed the demo data, so everything is starting to kind of stretch out. So if this were your real pipeline, I'd probably be concerned that everything was taking so long in each stage. But for illustrative purposes, I think it gives you the idea. And then as we scroll down, we come down to the reporting side of things. And so we've got current opportunities. We can interact with this report, and we can see, which opportunity is going on. All of this is easily customized for the things that are important to you. And then we can take that same information and we can take a look at what's been won and what's been lost. So really easy to extract relevant information and put it out in front of you so that you know what to do with it. As I scroll down, this is an example of some other visualizations that we've done in the forecasting side. This is actually revenue plus bookings, and I wanted to just show it as an example. But this is a Power BI report, Microsoft Power BI, embedded in Smartsheet. Smartsheet and Power BI, Smartsheet and Tableau work very, very well together. And so if you want to have more advanced visualizations, very easy to do. And you can embed them on your dashboards. And so I can interact with the with the Power BI itself. You can see I can navigate to the various Power BI tabs and take a look at things. Here's an example of a quilt by product, for example. You'll notice that we can present things that look like, well, let's look at how my products are doing by their booking numbers and what's my current forecast, that sort of thing. And I'll give you one more example. This is an ad drop report that we do. This is demo data again, but where we've used Power BI, in this case without Smartsheet, to take a look at changes in customer orders from week to week. So just gives you an example there. And so this is an example of a dashboard. If we go in and talk about, well, how would you build that quickly? What is the structure? I'm going to take you under the hood. And so now I'm in Smartsheet, and this is kind of the folder structure. So what I've done here is we've got the dashboard itself, all right? And then we have the actual key data sheet, which is the sales pipeline. I'm gonna jump to the other tab to show that to you. But so we've got here, and we've got, you can see that it looks like a normal Excel sheet. This is grid view, but each column is a data set. And so the way we've done this is, put together the opportunity, a product type, who the customer contact is, and then the sales stage. All right. The forecasted amount of that deal. So how much are we going to get if we close that deal? And then the probability. Okay. So at each stage, you'll remember we have a percentage assigned to that sales stage. And the weighted forecast then gives us forecast amount times probability gives a weighted forecast. And so we can at any time see what's going on with our pipeline, and that all rises up to that dashboard. And then we'll do things with expected close date. You'll see we have the actual close date. If we have a loss, we've done a stage at loss. And so we can just continue to keep track. And it's very easy. If I wanted to add a metric, and I didn't have cash received date in this demo, but I could add that. And so for anything that's closed, I could go ahead and enter a date. Let's just say we received cash today for this deal that was won. And now I can drive metrics that go from from stage 1 to cash received, or from actual close date to cash received. So in this example, maybe it's a 90-day payment terms. And so, we closed the deal on the 1st, but we didn't get paid till the 7th. Going back, and if we go back to the pipeline, we can see everything here. I talked about metric sheet. Let me put that in there. And so one of the things you do is you look toward other sheets to do calculations, and those calculations, formulas that look very much like Excel to you. So we've got 2 minutes left. That gives you an idea of kind of the live view of the dashboard. And what I'm going to do now is jump back into the presentation. And so if you'd like to get started, stay on for the Q&A session. We'll do a little bit more of a deeper dive. Feel free to schedule a free analysis session or to get a free trial license. Just click on the help request form, and that'll open up for you. It's actually a Smartsheet form. So that's one of the automations that we have in Smartsheet. So you can do that. If you would like to see more, you could also go to our PPS YouTube channel, and that will, this webinar will be up there shortly, and you can see some of the previous webinars. So that is today's session. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording. And again, stay on for a deeper dive in questions, or just fill out that form and contact me afterwards. Thanks very much.